Going back to movies of the summer, you called one particular movie the least surprising surprise hit of the summer, which was Elvis. Can you explain why you called it that?
Because Baz Luhrmann is generally, I don't know if he's a marquee director, but the films he makes tend to do well, with the exception of Australia, all due respect. He did The Great Gatsby, which opened with $50 million in May of 2013 on what was previously a cursed Warner Brothers weekend. It's the second weekend in summer where also, Battlefield Earth, um, Poseidon, King Arthur and the Legend of the Sword, and Speed Racer. You were too good for this world. But anyway, but and Elvis, when I talk about marquee characters, I'm not just talking about superheroes. I'm talking about celebrities like music stars, like Elvis Presley, Freddie Mercury, Elton John, Lady Gaga playing a slightly fictionalized version of herself in A Star Is Born. And so you have that marquee character in Elvis Presley. There's never, well, I don't want to say never, but it's been a while since we've had a big Elvis movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's the first big Hollywood one or not. There were other people's, but it certainly felt like it in my lifetime. But anyway, and you played to older and irregular moviegoers. The reviews were good. They were actually better than they were out of the Cannes Film Festival. What was funny out of that festival is there were a lot of negative reviews, but the negative reviews made it seem like a bonkers bananas, you have to see this for yourself, must see.
Of Elvis, they were that.
Yeah, of Elvis. It's like, you're selling me on this, buddy.
It's like twist my arm. Now I want to see it more.
I mean, one critic actually compared it to Speed Racer. I was like, okay.
Sign me up. Yeah, can I get an advance copy?
And the other thing is that Warner Brothers, when they're on their A game, they are, in my opinion, the best studio in town at turning less than conventional big theatrical releases into genuine commercial smash hits. This goes at least back for the last decade. I'm thinking films like Magic Mike, Gravity, American Sniper, Dunkirk, It. They did it a bunch in 2018 with A Star Is Born, Crazy Rich Asians, The Meg, which was the first China Hollywood co-production that was actually a blockbuster in America and in China.
That was the Blake Lively
No, I
shark.
apologize. That was The Shallows. That was a small scale hit in the summer of 2016.
Yes.
The Meg was the Jason Statham picture.
Yes. Okay.
Both are good. And then in 2019, with Joker, which, it was a comic book movie, but it was a grim, dark, action, light, R-rated drama that still made $1 billion without China. And then even in quote unquote COVID times, I mean, I think Dune did better than it would have done as just another tentpole in, whenever it would have come out. I mean, I think it would have had a decent shot in December 2020, which is when they originally wanted to release it, because they were going to sell it as this year's Lord of the Rings.
But what made it so successful?
The right movie at the right time. And to be fair, it's successful on a COVID curve. It's a $165 million movie that made 110 million domestic and 400 worldwide.
Okay.
In non-COVID times, I believe that would have been not a franchise started, but a bullet dodged. You take the win, you're happy you didn't get soaked, and you move on. That being said, the reviews were good. It did win, it did win a half a dozen tech Oscars, most of which were amazingly not presented live on the Disney broadcast.
Over the past few years, you were saying we've seen musical biopics from musical greats, Elton John, Aretha Franklin, Freddie Mercury. How did Elvis stack up to those?
NWA, it opened with 61 million in the summer of 2015, made 160 domestic and 200 worldwide on a $25 million budget. But yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody was an unprecedented lightning in a bottle. Nobody could have predicted this mega smash. It made 905 million worldwide, 216 domestic from a $52 million opening weekend, with mixed reviews. Again, I think the online discourse skews the narrative in terms, but most people who saw it liked it. My dad loved it.
I loved it.
I mean, I have my issues with it, but it plays as a kick-ass concert rock and roll spectacular.
And you said that Elvis's success hinged on these good reviews paired with Oscar buzz. Do you think it lived up to that hype?
Yes. I think it's a good, solid picture. I think Austin Butler gives a strong and frankly very subtle performance as Elvis. And I think Tom Hanks gives a performance unlike anything you've ever seen him do. He's
I don't
played
know.
villains before, but he's never played a genuine, pardon my French, asshole.
I don't know how I feel about Tom Hanks as a villain. He's America's sweetheart. I'm still I'm seeing Elvis this weekend. I'm very excited about that. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm nervous to see Tom Hanks as a villain.
Spoiler, Colonel Parker was not a nice person.
So I've heard. My mom and sister have seen Elvis multiple times now, and they,
It's a terrific audience picture. And the nice thing about it is that it does kind of rebut conventional wisdom about what regular movie goers will sit for. It's a 2-hour, 40-minute, action light violence. There's obviously no violence in the picture that I'm aware of. It's a drama. It's a drama. And yeah, it's a musical drama. And I think that's the key ingredient, as you mentioned briefly, that I think in pre-COVID times, the live action musical was one of those genres, along with DC Marvel comic book movies, high concept horror, and franchise specific animation, that was still theatrically safe. It still qualified as something seeing in a theater. And I was a little scared last year because we had a lot of musicals that bombed. Dear Evan Hansen, West Side Story, In the Heights, Respect. But here's the weird thing. Those films, except for Evan Hansen, that was doomed. Those films did, $25 to $35 million, which was terrible on an objective point of view, but it still did a lot better than most studio programmers that were released in 2021.
What do you think the difference is between those films and then the successes, the Bohemian Rhapsodies, the Elvises, Rocket Man?
I think Elvis, obviously, it was released during a slightly healthier time for the marketplace. There's a reason they held on to it for over a year after it was set to be released. I think you have the Elvis Presley as a marquee character. I think Tom Hanks is a huge added value element, especially to the older irregular moviegoers that used to show up to Tom Hanks movies back in the 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Saving Private Ryan, Philadelphia, Forrest Gump, Toy Story, Castaway, etc., etc. And I think one thing that kind of helped it in a skewed way was that its trailer played in front of Top Gun Maverick in most Top Gun Maverick showings.
And that audience would translate to one another. Okay.
You had a film that was aimed at older irregular moviegoers, and by the good grace of God, you had a super giant mega blockbuster that everybody saw in theaters, that also had a trailer that was directly pitched to the older irregular moviegoers that otherwise might have been harder to reach. And that goes into a broader problem that Hollywood's had over the last pre-COVID several years, which is that audiences see fewer and fewer non-tentpole films in theaters, which also means they're less likely to see advertising for those non-tentpole films in theaters. And because people watch less explicitly commercial television than they used to, they're less likely to see those TV spots for those non-event films. So it's been a lot more challenging to market those films. And then when they come out, you have people online going, where was the marketing? It was badly marketed. Well, you didn't see all these adult movies, grown-up movies in theaters. You didn't watch commercial television, or you fast forward the commercials. Where do you think you were going to see these ads?
What do you think that studios could do to get eyes on these previews? Because there's a number of movies I was talking with earlier with friends. I haven't even seen a preview yet this summer. So how can they bridge that disconnect?
I don't know, because, I have ideas, but I don't know if they're good ideas. And, it would involve a certain amount of sacrifice. And for a publicly traded company, that's a challenging proposition. I think making a real effort to get non-tentpole trailers attached to actual tentpole movies would help. So when you go to see a preview, when you go to see Jurassic World Dominion in theaters, you're absolutely going to get a preview for Idris Elba's Beast, which is also a Universal picture. And again, I don't want to speak out of turn. It's possible that trailer was attached to Jurassic World. I did not, although, was it? Because I did see it in theaters after the press. Whatever, doesn't matter. Because I think if Don't Worry Darling does well, and I think it's going to next month, one thing that's going to help it was having its trailer playing in most showings of Where the Crawdads Sing, which was like the only female-centric movie of the entire summer, which is embarrassing. And the second trailer premiered right before Jordan Peele's Nope. So you have a film that's targeting people, men and women, who like female-centric melodramas, and you have people of all demographics that